At 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, that would change everything. I was flat on my back in a crawl space that smelled like dust and 23 years of broken promises, troubleshooting why the CEO's $8,500 HVAC system was screaming like a jet engine with a death wish. Some contractor back in 2019 had wired it into the same electrical panel as the server room. Nobody thought to check the amperage load. Nobody but me, that is. My name is Raymond Patterson. Ray, to anyone who's ever worked alongside me, which used to be just about everyone in this building. I'm 55 years old. I've been the chief building engineer at this Phoenix tech company since 2001, back when there were 12 employees, one fax machine held together with electrical tape, and dreams bigger than our bank account. These days, they've got 150 employees, steel case furniture that cost more than my truck, and a CEO who thinks HVAC stands for have a very acceptable coffee. That morning started like every other morning for the last 23 years. Me unlocking the building at 6:47, 23 minutes before anyone else, with the original brass key they gave me back when this place was above Tony's Auto Repair and we couldn't afford real office furniture. I kept that key on a steel ring with 11 others, each one labeled in my handwriting, each one a little piece of this building's history that lived in my head and nowhere else. The cleaning crew had left somebody's takeout container in the break room sink, again. Someone from marketing had abandoned sushi in the mini fridge over the weekend. The coffee machine had leaked all over the counter. Not technically my job. Not in any contract I ever signed. But guess who cleaned up fermented coffee at 7 in the morning? This guy. Some days I felt like the foundation in this building. Invisible, taken for granted, only noticed when something cracked. I held everything together while they built floors on top of me. And I did it quietly because that's what you do. That's what the Air Force taught me when I was 22, maintaining F-16s in the desert heat. You do the work right or you don't do it at all. I kept my father's Craftsman toolbox in my truck. Still had his socket wrenches organized the same way he did. That toolbox had more value to me than any plaque they never gave me or any bonus they never thought to offer. The CEO thought I was maintenance. My business card said chief building engineer, but Austin Caldwell couldn't tell a circuit breaker from a cappuccino machine. My inbox had 2,100 unread work orders from people who couldn't change a light bulb without submitting a ticket in triplicate, and I handled every single one because that's the job. That's always been the job. It got worse when they brought in Madison Torres as the new HR director. Fresh out of USC, all teeth and buzzwords. Kid wore Lululemon athleisure bought with venture capital and talked about cultural fit like she'd invented the concept. Once asked me where the main electrical panel was. I told her the same place her performance review was headed if she didn't learn how things actually worked around here. She didn't laugh. I didn't go to fancy business schools. Never wore a suit that cost more than a mortgage payment. But I knew that building. Not like a property manager knows a building, but like you know your own truck. Which pipes rattled before a storm, which thermostat freaked out when Phoenix hit 116 degrees, where the main electrical panel made a sound like a rattlesnake if you opened it too fast. I'd kept this company breathing through power surges, pipe bursts, equipment failures, and 3 CEOs worth of terrible decisions, and they just forgot. No recognition, no handwritten thank you notes. Just once, after I stayed until midnight to restore power during a monsoon that would have cost them $180,000 in lost server data, the old VP gave me a half-eaten protein bar and said, "You're a saint, Randy. My name's Ray." After a while, I stopped correcting people. That lease, the one that let us squat in prime Phoenix industrial space for a fraction of market rate. I negotiated that back in 2001 when we couldn't get a landlord to return our calls. Company had 12 employees and couldn't even get approved for a credit card. The founder, Tony Brennan, sat across from me at a diner and said, "Ray, if you don't co-sign this lease, we'll be working out of my garage. My wife will kill me." I didn't co-sign it. I signed the whole thing, put the lease in my name, used my credit because nobody else could. Tony promised it was just temporary, just until we got on our feet. Said he'd transfer it to the company once we stabilized. I trusted him. We both forgot to follow up on that promise. And 23 years later, my name was still on every renewal. After that first year, it was always me who handled the lease paperwork, me who dealt with the property manager, me who coordinated the HVAC upgrades, the carpet replacements, The time we had a weird smell in Suite B that turned out to be a dead rat in the ventilation. They never asked about the lease. Never even thought to check. I didn't mind at first. Back then they felt like family. But like most families, they eventually forgot who kept the lights on. You ever walk into a room you've spent 23 years maintaining and suddenly realize nobody sees you unless the printer jams or there's a power outage? That was me, invisible until things broke. Then suddenly I was everyone's dad and janitor rolled into one, expected to fix everything with a smile and a can-do attitude, so I kept showing up, quiet, competent, reliable as sunrise. That's what you do when you believe in something, when you think loyalty means something, when you still believe that doing good work will be enough. Then came that Monday. HR sent an all-staff email about strategic realignment opportunities, which in corporate speak is like the mob saying, "Let's go for a ride." My gut went cold. I'd seen enough executives cry into their laptops during layoff meetings to know what was coming. I was next, and I wasn't going to cry. I'd already started remembering things they'd forgotten they owed me. The meeting invite came at 4:58 p.m., just as I was replacing a burned-out ballast in the conference room. Subject line, quick sync with HR. No context, no warning, just a calendar event dropped onto my day like a turd in a punch bowl. I showed up the next morning at 9 sharp, wearing my denim work shirt with the company logo I'd been wearing since 2003 and my polished work boots. Those boots had seen 3 CEOs, 1 office fire, and a Christmas party that ended in a very messy divorce. They were my armor. Madison from HR was already seated in conference room B, smiling like a guidance counselor about to expel a student. Next to her, some guy from legal I'd never met before. Slicked hair, expensive shoes, and a folder he kept stroking like it contained nuclear launch codes. "Ray, thanks for coming in," Madison chirped. "We wanted to have a restructuring conversation." That word, restructuring. I'd heard it before, held other people's hands through it, covered their shifts afterward. I knew the playbook. First the smile, then the folder, then the apology that wasn't really an apology. "We're going in a new direction," Madison said. "Modernizing operations." I stared at her. That direction wouldn't happen to include me, would it? Silence. Then the lawyer slid the folder across the table. Inside, a generic severance package with more red tape than a crime scene. 3 months' pay, NDA clause, health insurance until the end of the quarter. Real generous. The letter didn't even get my name right. Called me Raymond J. Patterson. 23 years, and they couldn't spell the name on the lease. "We're asking for your badge and keys today," the lawyer added, monotone. "Also, any company property in your possession?" I took a breath that could have cracked concrete, reached into my bag, set the badge on the table like a poker chip I was done playing. Next, the keys. All 12 of them, labeled in my handwriting from 2003, back when I stayed late to rekey the entire building myself because the old lock system was a security nightmare. "You sure?" I asked, eyes locked on Madison. She blinked. "I'm sorry? You sure you want these?" I held up the key ring. Last chance to think it through. Madison gave me that HR face. Sympathetic, professional, fake as margarine. "It's not personal, Ray." "Sure it isn't." I stood up, buttoned my work shirt, and picked up that sad little severance folder. "You just fired the only person in this building who knows where the main water shutoff is. Good luck with that." I walked out before I could say something that would feel good for 10 seconds and cost me the next 10 years. The Phoenix sun hit my face like a slap. The parking lot hummed with people who had no idea they'd just watched a building sign its own death warrant. I didn't cry. Not after 23 years of fixing their mistakes, calming their panicked interns, keeping their precious servers cool in 116-degree heat. They wanted to forget me. Fine, but they'd forgotten too much. I didn't drive straight home. I pulled into a Circle K parking lot, killed the engine, and sat there for a minute. Then I called Danny Rodriguez. Danny was my neighbor's kid, grew up fixing bikes in my garage for $20 and cold Gatorade. Now he's a real estate attorney with a Bluetooth headset permanently attached to his skull and a nervous twitch when people say the word arbitration. He picked up on the second ring. "Ray, everything okay?" "No," I said, "but it's about to be. You remember that lease we drew up in 2001? A pause, then a low whistle. "Oh, that lease. Do they know?" I smiled for the first time that day. Not a warm smile, a dangerous one. They just asked for the keys, so I think it's time I gave them everything they asked for. My house smelled like WD-40 and old Clint Eastwood movies, my way of staying sane. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my boots, and walked straight to the garage where I kept the important things, not in a filing cabinet. In my father's Craftsman toolbox, red metal dented to hell, 1975, top drawer, under the socket wrenches, the Lease. I spread it out on my workbench like a blueprint. 23 years old, coffee-stained, held together with spite and staples. Original lease agreement, 6 amendments, a receipt for the lobby furniture I bought in 2002 before the company could afford real stuff. Even a crayon drawing from Tony's son, Andrew Brennan, back when the office was one room above that auto shop and smelled like motor oil and desperation. Page 11, Section 8B. Renewal of lease term shall require written notice from lessee no later than 30 days prior to expiration. I checked the expiration date, July 1st. Today was July 3rd. 2 days late. They hadn't sent an email, hadn't made a phone call, not even a certified letter to the property manager. They were so busy celebrating their upcoming expansion and playing musical chairs with executive titles that they forgot to renew the lease on the building that housed their entire operation. I sat back in my garage chair, cracked open a Coors. A smile crawled across my face, the kind you wear when you realize the universe just handed you a winning lottery ticket. They just fired the leaseholder, and now they were trespassing. I picked up my phone and started checking. Insurance policy, still in my name. HVAC service contract, renewed last year under my direct email. Cleaning service, they only showed up because I Venmo'd the manager every month out of my own pocket. Utilities routed through a business account I'd opened with the city back in 2003 when the power used to cut out every time someone microwaved popcorn and printed a document at the same time. Everything that mattered still ran through me. I was the invisible infrastructure, and they just asked me to leave. I could have warned them. Could have sent an email with a subject line like, "Hey, you forgot something important." That's what the old Ray would have done. The Ray who believed loyalty was a two-way street. But that Ray got handed a severance package with his name spelled wrong after 23 years of keeping the lights on. So I closed the lease folder, I finished my beer, and I decided for the first time in 23 years to shut up and let them walk off the cliff they'd built for themselves. I wore my good boots to the meeting with Charles Brooks, the property manager, not because I needed to impress anyone, but because they made a solid sound on tile floors. I wanted to be heard coming. Charles looked up from his computer when I walked into his office. He was the kind of guy who had 15 different highlighters on his desk and always smelled like fresh coffee. "Ray," he said, surprised. "Didn't expect to see you." I smiled. "Just here to clarify some things about the lease." I pulled out my folder and handed him the documentation. Original lease, all 6 amendments, everything pristine, right down to that crayon drawing from Andrew Brennan during our 2004 renewal meeting. "I want to confirm something," I said. "There was no written renewal request submitted by June 1st, correct?" He clicked through his computer like it owed him money. No, not from the company. Nothing logged. I assumed they were going month to month while they worked out a new deal." I nodded. "Under Clause 8B, that converts to month-to-month tenancy automatically, which means either party can terminate with 30 days' notice." Charles leaned back. His chair creaked like old knees. "Technically, yes." I pulled another paper from my bag. Thick stock. Official letterhead Danny had drafted up. "I'd like to formally notify you of lease termination, effective in 30 days. His eyebrows shot up. "Wait, you're terminating it?" "Yep. As the lessee of record, I've already lined up a replacement tenant. They're paying triple the current rate. The new tenant was a wellness company called Bloom Haven, run by a woman named Sarah Matthews. I'd met her at a farmer's market last year while buying peppers. Mentioned the building space casually about 6 months back. She'd been waiting for my call ever since. Young, loaded with investor money, desperate for Phoenix space to install their meditation pods and air purification systems." Charles ran a hand through his thinning hair. "This is going to be messy." "Messy," I said, standing up, "is what they handed me after 23 years. I'm just returning the favor." Back home, I filed the eviction notice through the county portal. Paid extra to expedite. The confirmation email hit my inbox with a satisfying ding. Then, like clockwork, HR emailed me. Subject: confirmation to return property. Dear Ray, hope you're doing well. We're reaching out to confirm you've returned all company property, including documentation, keys, badges, and other physical or digital assets. Please respond to confirm. Best, Madison. I didn't hesitate. Clicked reply, all because I knew Madison loved to CC half the company to make herself look busy. Yes, including the ones you forgot I had. I hit send and leaned back in my chair. That night, I couldn't sleep, not from guilt, from something else. I kept thinking about Andrew Brennan. He'd be in his 30s now. Probably didn't even remember the crayon drawing in that lease folder. Didn't remember sitting on my workbench while his dad and I figured out how to keep the lights on with duct tape and hope. I wondered if he knew what his father's company had become, if he'd be proud or ashamed. Then I remembered something my old man used to say back when he was teaching me how to wire a panel box. Ray, you do good work because that's who you are, not because of who's watching. I wasn't doing this to them. I was doing this for the guy I used to be. The one who believed showing up and doing it right would be enough. The one who deserved better than a misspelled name and a severance check that couldn't even cover 3 months of keeping that building alive. I owed him this. The guilt disappeared. The sleep came easy after that. 2 mornings later, I stood in my garage with a cup of black coffee and the certified letter in my other hand. Heavy envelope. Return signature. County court stamp. Plaintiff, Raymond Patterson. Defendant, company occupant, suite 201. Subject, notice of termination and demand to vacate premises. My name in bold at the top, spelled correctly. Across town, the same envelope landed at reception around 9:15 a.m. The property manager had sent it priority mail and emailed a PDF copy for good measure. Standard procedure. 30-day notice. Tenant failed to renew. New occupancy scheduled. Vacate or respond through legal channels. Problem was, the receptionist that day was a temp. Name tag said Amber in glitter pen. She probably thought it was junk mail and tossed it in recycling between expired protein bars and a broken laminator. Meanwhile, upstairs in the executive suite, the leadership team was busy admiring their own reflections. Expansion talks. Branding refreshes. Someone was giving a presentation about disrupting verticals, whatever that meant. Too busy disrupting industries they didn't understand to notice they'd forgotten to renew the lease on the building that housed their disruption. At exactly 8:03 a.m. the following Monday, Madison strolled into the building like a motivational speaker late to her own seminar. Kombucha in hand, Lululemon top zipped up like armor against accountability. By 8:08, she was standing in front of Austin's office with her jaw hanging like a broken gate. Fluorescent orange eviction notice, laminated, zip-tied to the door handle. Notice to vacate property, breach of lease terms, 72 hours. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking like she'd overdosed on caffeine, tried to peel the notice off, but it held fast like judgment. By 8:30, Austin arrived, unshaven, Bluetooth headset in one ear, probably thought he was walking into another crushing it kind of morning. Instead, he found Madison pacing, the marketing team rubbernecking, and a legal document zip-tied to his door like a game-over screen. He yanked it off, read it, blinked, read it again. By 9:02, his phone rang. Charles Brooks, property manager. Mr. Caldwell, this is to confirm enforcement of lease termination. We notified you via certified mail and email over 2 weeks ago. We received no response. What? We never got any notice. It was sent to your registered business address. Delivered and signed for. We assumed your silence was intentional. By 10:20, someone finally figured out who the plaintiff was. Madison opened her laptop, pulled up the scanned court documents. There it was, plain as daylight. Plaintiff. Raymond Patterson. Wait, Ray? Our Ray? James Walsh from Facilities, one of the good ones, nodded from the break room doorway. Told you something was weird when you fired him. The call came at 7:42 p.m. I was organizing socket wrenches in my dad's toolbox because a man needs order somewhere in this world. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen since the Christmas party where he forgot mine. Caldwell. Austin. CEO. I let it ring twice, 3 times, picked up on the 4th. Patterson speaking. He didn't waste time. What the hell is going on? You can't do this. I put him on speaker, poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey, and leaned against my workbench like I was settling in for my favorite ball game. I absolutely can. And I did. Rid your lease. You're evicting an entire company. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The board's losing it. We've got press everywhere. Our investors, I cut him off. Austin, let me stop you right there. You fired the person who held the keys. All of them. Building, legal, operational. You didn't even ask who signed the lease. We assumed. That's the problem. You assumed about everything. About me, about what I was worth, about what would happen if you threw me away like a used air filter. Silence on the other end, heavy breathing. You blindsided us, he finally said. Nope, I responded. I responded to being blindsided. Difference is, I came prepared. This doesn't just come back on you. The board is going to... They'll do what they always do, protect themselves. Maybe throw you under the bus if they're hungry enough, but they won't call me because I have the paperwork. And Bloomhaven already wired the first 2 months' rent. That shut him up. Just to clarify, I continued, I didn't sell the company out. I just stopped carrying it on my back. The line went quiet, then disconnected. By Friday morning, the company was in full panic mode, throwing money at every commercial landlord within 20 miles. Too little, too late. Monday morning hit like a falling piano. Down on Industrial Boulevard, they were wheeling steel-cased chairs and half-empty Keurig pods into a rented U-Haul with one missing taillight. Madison wore sunglasses the size of dinner plates. Someone had taped printer paper to the truck. Strategic relocation. Then came the moment. Austin, sweaty, completely lost it. A folding chair flew from his hands and smacked the side of the U-Haul with a hollow clang. Someone posted the video within minutes. 3 hours later, it hit every tech blog in the region. I drove by at 3:47 p.m., not to gloat, but to see it finished. The U-Haul was pulling away, one taillight still busted. The building stood empty for the first time since 2001. Through the glass doors, I could see Bloomhaven's crew already measuring for their meditation pods. Sarah Matthews waved from the lobby. I rolled down my window. All yours? I said. You built something solid here, Ray. We'll honor that. I nodded. Didn't need her to honor it. I just needed them to remember that foundations matter. That the people who know where the pipes run and the wires go aren't interchangeable parts. James called me 2 days later. Said he'd quit. Couldn't stomach working for people who'd throw away 23 years of a man's life over a misspelled severance letter. What are you going to do now? He asked. I looked at my father's toolbox. At the phone that hadn't stopped ringing with calls from other building managers who'd heard what happened and wanted someone who actually knew what a load-bearing wall was. Same thing I've always done, I said. The work. Just for people who remember to say thank you. 3 months later, I was consulting for 6 downtown Phoenix buildings, making double what I made before, setting my own hours. Every contract I signed, I made sure my name was spelled right. 23 years they took for granted. I reminded them I was foundational. When a load-bearing wall walks away, the whole building comes down. Turns out competence never retires.